Everyone, hello. How you guys doing?
Hello. Good evening.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
This week is just flying by.
Yes.
I am so excited. Come on, get in here, y'all. Get in here.
Gather round.
Now, before we start, today is a very special day.
Yes.
What's today, babe?
Today is my dad's birthday.
Yeah.
In heaven. And today has been, I thought it was a little emotional, but it's been more celebratory and joyful. Me and my mom went out to breakfast. Just been acknowledging him. I wear his shirt, and I'm going to start that tradition of wearing his shirt every year. I have more than one of his shirts. He just fly. He was from Harlem. See, the shirts are fly. And so just recognizing him today, showing the kids pictures, things of that nature. It's been a very good day.
And by the way, this is the only other man's shirt she's going to get to wear. What I say?
Always claiming his territory. Always.
I like it. Okay.
It's the lion in me.
No, and Sean Jr.
I want to show when I get
when he gets older.
Wait, Maurice, not even him.
Oh mercy! Don't do her like that, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back. Get in here, y'all.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're very excited. This has been an amazing week. Dr. Maurice Cassell has been joining us, giving us so much information on mental health. This is what we call the Mental Health Check-in week.
Yes.
All right. So today's topic is very, very good because we are parents. We have 3 children.
3 of them, baby.
And today's topic is what, Dr. Cassell?
Yeah, we're going to talk about mental health in children. So we're going to talk about our children. I'm excited, as you mentioned. We're all parents. I'm a fairly new parent. I have a 4-year-old. She was born 2/20/2020. Yeah, we call her. Our double portion blessing is what we call her because she was such a strategic time. Of course, she is a pandemic baby, so we've had to navigate that with her as well. All of us have had to do that, but she was born 1 week before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit and everything shut down. So we had to navigate that with her as well. So yeah, I'm excited about talking about our children today and making sure we're checking in on their own mental health. Yep.
And speaking about that, the pandemic was very rough for us because we were so worried about our children.
Yes.
We knew the severity of catching COVID.
Yes.
And the scariest thing was, oh my God, if my kids.
That's it.
But what was our scenario with our children? They were insanely sick in January, sicker than they've ever been.
Yep.
Phoenix had to go to another hospital for pneummonia.
They didn't know what it was.
January.
They didn't know what it was.
And it was interesting because at that hospital, people were wearing masks. And this was January.
This is before it hit.
Before we heard anything.
Wow.
There were people wearing masks. She had to go because they had all kinds of viruses they were tested for. Nothing came back positive, but they were sick, both of them, Phoenix and Sean.
Yeah, I never saw them so sick ever in my life.
And Phoenix, they were sending her to the other hospital for pneumonia. And then it ended up, everything ended up being okay, thank God. But we are 99% sure that was COVID.
It was COVID before they knew what
they knew what it was. Yeah.
Happy we didn't know because that mental would have probably it was been too much.
So before we get right into it, who are we, Michelle?
Oh, who are we?
We just assume everybody knows who we are, right?
We are
Sean and Michelle Clark.
We are the owners of Double Dutch Aerobics, which is a formatted 60-minute workout class led by an instructor where we teach aerobics moves in the Double Dutch rope. It's either led by us or you can get certified and teach Double Dutch Aerobics yourself. We're also the host of the Jump and Juice 10,000, where we get 10,000 people to do a 10-day juice cleanse together. And
at the same time.
Juicing has changed our lives, and we're all about healing, which is why this week is about mental health. And so if you want to be a part of the Jump and Juice 10,000, just subscribe to the website, doubledutchaerobics.com, And the next one is April 8th to the 18th. And we'll tell you how to get registered when we send you the email.
Because our goal is to heal you from the inside out.
Hello.
And from the outside in.
Hello. Jump and juice.
Come on, somebody.
Out, in. You get it. You get it.
All right. So, Marius, take it away.
Yeah, so again, it's been a great week to be with Sean and Michelle of Double Dutch Aerobics, being a part of this movement. As I shared on Monday, this has become a movement, and it's a holistic movement. And so for those who are tuning in and they're saying, what's happening? We thought Sean and Michelle, they just focused on Double Dutch. My friends, they are concerned about us holistically, body, soul, and spirit. So Sean and Michelle, thank you for being concerned about us holistically. We certainly appreciate that. And it's been a great week to be with Sean and Michelle. And Sean, I was thinking today, this is just like when we were in high school, right? We would be together for the entire week, hanging out in class, making jokes. And well, what happened in high school, we'll just leave it in high school. We don't have to tell everybody what happened. But listen, we were great kids. We were.
Yeah, we were.
Michelle, you would have been proud of your husband even back then. All right. So I don't have any of those stories that would make him ashamed, right? But it's just great to be with you. And before we jump in and talking about our kids, I felt like I would respond to, we had a lot of questions last night, and people were asking about contacting me. And I wanted to say this. Of course, I'm limited in the amount of people that I can see individually. Certainly, I can see people in the state of Georgia. But one of the things I also wanted to let you know was part of my work through C3 in this together, and you see my information on there, is to offer support organizationally as well. So I do a lot of trainings for organizations, for business, for churches. So if you are in need of those kinds of services, certainly I can maximize the time that way, where I will meet with groups via Zoom or in person. And we could do like we're doing this week, right? A mental health check-in for a day, a half day, 2 hours, 45 minutes. So I felt like I would remind people of that, right? So that I do offer organizational support, group support. So I'm here to serve you as well, just like Sean and Michelle. So let's jump right in. And we're going to talk today about, let's put it on the screen. And once it's on the screen, Sean and Michelle, just give me the thumbs up.
I got you.
There we go. Perfect. So we're going to talk. Did I do that right?
Nope. So load it up so I could.
Yeah, let's try that again. Right. I'm going to stop sharing. There we go. We will try that once again. Hit entire screen. There we go.
Oh,
it's not here yet. There it is.
There it is. Okay, perfect. So yeah, we're going to talk today about how do we help our youth, our children, how do we help them cope, manage, and navigate crisis. Sean and Michelle, we talked about, of course, the pandemic, right? Coming out of the pandemic and the COVID-19 crisis, right? So how do we help them? And we do know this, that coming out or even while we were in the pandemic, the crisis really hit home to our children and our youth. So as they come out of it, we want to make sure that we are coming alongside them. I'll say this before we get started. I always say this to parents, that keep in mind that children and young people are little versions of ourselves.
Ain't that the truth?
That's right.
Yeah, in so many ways, right? So what we experience in terms of crisis and trauma and challenges, they are also experiencing it as well, but they just process it differently because of their developmental levels. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's important that we keep that in mind. So what we felt, what we were dealing with, the anxiety, the stress, all of what we were feeling, please know that our children felt it as well. So we want to make sure that even as they're back in school, learning to navigate in person, versus, remote, learning to socialize again. We want to make sure we are locked into them. All right. As always, I've got to put this disclaimer on there that, again, we are not here to certify anyone in counseling. We are not assessing. We are not diagnosing. We are not treating any mental health conditions this week, right? But what we're doing is we are giving you some self-help techniques. We're giving you some supports that will help you along, right? We also want to remind you, if at any time during our time this week you become triggered, because Listen, especially talking about our children. Let's be honest, right?
Yes.
We're good. Yeah, Sean, and you'll attest to this. Michelle is great. She's wonderful, but mess with her babies. She become, look at that face. It's over. It's over. Mama Bear will jump in there, right? Right. So we know when we're talking about our children, it hits home a little bit differently, right?
Mhm.
It could be triggering. So please let us know and engage in those self-regulating skills, whether it's breathing, prayer, taking a walk, meditation, whatever it is that you've got to do. Please do that. All right. Again, we'll always do some activities. So we want to let people know wherever you are that these activities could be also triggering, right? Because we're dealing with visual, we're dealing with sound and sight and movement and touch. We don't want anyone to be triggered wherever they are. All right. So I pause right here and just someone will say, well, Dr. Cassell, why do you take the time to do this? Why do we go through these every time that you do a session? Here's why, Sean and Michelle. It's what I said yesterday. I'm very concerned about people who will get on platforms like this, and for the sake of likes, for the sake of going viral, they forget that on the other side of the camera are people who are dealing with real life conditions.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah, so we don't want to do anything to trigger anyone and to leave anyone and they not have the supports that they need. Does that make sense? And that's called good caregiving, techniques. That's called just being concerned about people. So let's jump in with our first activity. We're going to begin with our first activity. As always, we love activities.
Love them.
We love them, right? Right. Here's the thing from a neurobiological perspective. The front region of your brain, which is known as the prefrontal cortex, it actually gets bigger and it works faster. And that's the area of decision making, judgment, empathy, right? Executive functioning. All of that begins to come alive when we do activities. So it helps us to lean in a little bit more. So here's our first activity. I've got a balloon. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to attempt to blow up this balloon. Keep in mind that I'm older now, so my lungs are not as good. I'm not as great as Sean and Michelle. They do this all day long, right? They're better at exercising, all of that. But here's what I want you to do. I'm going to attempt to blow up this balloon. And Sean and Michelle, and those of you who are watching wherever you are, just go ahead. And what I want you to do is just offer some support to me. Say, go, Maurice. Go, Dr. You can do this. You can. Oh, by the way, this is what Sean and Michelle does anyhow. They're always saying, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it.
Yes, you can. Yes.
Oh, yes, you can.
Yes,
Here you go. Oh, yes, you can. Right. So I want you to do that. I'm going to, count off to 3. I'm going to blow this up. Please say, oh, yes, you can. Go, Dr. Cassell. You can do this. So here we go. 1,
All right,
2, 3.
everybody type in. Oh, yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can.
Yes.
Go, go, go.
Woo! I'm gonna stop right there.
No music.
You love my balloon? Yeah, my 4-year-old she is gonna have a field day with this one. But I want to start with this activity. Why begin? And again, there's no right or wrong answer. As we're talking about helping kids to navigate crisis, why begin with a balloon? What do you think? No right or wrong answer. We're talking about mental health awareness. We're talking about our emotions. Why did I begin with that exercise? Like I always do. In fact, when I work with children and youth, I'll start with that activity. What do you think?
I think you. I don't know. I think you just put. I guess you're putting all of your energy.
Yes, you put everything into them. It starts off. I guess. Not nothing, but it starts off blank, and then you fill it up.
Right, negatively or positively,
you fill it up.
You fill it up inch by inch. You just keep blowing into it, blowing into it, blowing into it.
Yeah, no right or wrong answer. We could go in many different directions, but it's exactly what you said, Sean and Michelle. Here's what I tell people: that every one of us, we've got emotions. Every one of us, and we need a safe place to put those emotions, right? This balloon had no life. It was deflated, right? But the moment I began to blow into that balloon, I released that stuff into the balloon, right? I tell children and young people and adults, well, when I do training in person, that we've all got emotions and we need a safe place to put those emotions, right? Somebody will say, well, I'm not emotive, right? I don't verbalize. I don't express. I have a flat affect. My friends, if you've got emotions, if you're alive, right? You've got brain, you've got emotions, and you need a safe place to put that. Make sense?
Yes.
Let's now make that more concrete as it relates to children and youth. They've got emotions, and we need to create safe places where they can put those emotions. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And people will say, oh, they're kids. They're all right. You don't know, when I was growing up, we had to walk 10 miles.
Yeah.
We had to take the 2 train. We had to take the D train. And then we had to walk to Prospect Park. And these kids, they don't know what life is. My friends, keep in mind that they too have emotions. And we want to make sure that we are checking in with those emotions and we become a safe place for them. Sean and Michelle, any thoughts on that before we jump forward? We know how we flow.
I do. I have a very pressing question.
Sure.
Actually come up again after watching Love is Blind, okay? And I often find this question with parents that are either co-parenting or parents that are separated in dealing with children. So you said a safe place, right? So a parent, let's say a single mom, for example, this example on on the show, for example. So a single mom wants to be a safe place for their child, right? They're constantly blowing in as much positive as they can to their child. But of course, we're made from 2 parents, right? So the other parent makes promises, breaks promises, puts the child in a position, because here's what I realized in having children. This is important. We realized that when our daughter Phoenix was in the hospital recently, is our children also want to take care of us emotionally.
That's right.
Without knowing it, my son Maverick is how old? 2. He's 2. And he was telling us, because I think he saw our panic, it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. And I was so blown away because he's 2 and caring about our emotions. So I'm only saying that to say, how do you be a safe place for the other parent when the child also sees you're hurt with that relationship? Am I making sense? And I'm supposed to talk about co-parents because the child is also being hurt by the parent who's being mean and absent. But the reason you're not a safe space as the other parent is because they know you're hurt by that too. Am I making sense?
Yeah, makes sense. And you're right. Children pick up on our energy, right? They pick up on where we are. They pick up on when we're hurting, right? When we're going through. So again, our jobs, right? This is what I tell people. We don't have the power to change anyone else. When I talk about suicide awareness, one of the things, sadly, with suicide awareness, and we talk about people who've taken their lives by suicide, we have to remind people that we don't have the power to change the other person. But what we do have the power to do, of course, number one is to change ourselves and create a safe place for ourselves. And in this case, our children. So we do our best to make sure that wherever we are with our children, we create a safe place. Right. And then we also prepare them to live in a world that might not be safe. We also prepare them in a way to go to places that are not safe, that they can still function in those places that are not safe. Does that make sense? So we don't isolate, we don't insulate our children. What we do is, and one of my bonus mom, adopted moms, spiritual moms, if you will, she said this many years ago. She said, Maurice, I don't raise my children for myself. I raise them for the world. And I thought, what do you mean by that? And what she explained was, she's raising her children. She's raised them. They're now adult children so that they can function in a world wherever they go. Does that make sense?
Right.
The truth is, our kids are going to be exposed to places that are not safe. And some of those places might be with family members, might be with other members we don't have control over. But we should so prepare them that wherever you go, you can function, because you know what safety looks like. Right. You know what love looks like. You know what bonding looks like. You know what truth looks like. As for me and my house, right? This is what we do. So when you get out of there and it's not safe, you know how to function. So did I just answer that?
Yeah. So you have to, even if it's the other parent. You have to teach them how to manage that.
Exactly. You got to teach them, right? Because again, we are preparing them for life, right? How can they function outside of us? And when they leave our homes, when they leave our safe places, unfortunately, they do go to places that are not safe. And someone is saying, well, Dr. Cassell, you just said you send your kids to places that's not, no, that's not what I said, right? You know, we're not going to send our kids to places that's abusive or, you know, has turmoil, but we understand that other places will not be like our place, our home. And
Right.
we want them to be okay no matter where they go. Now, let's add some caveat to that. If they're in a place where they're being abused, right? They're being damaged emotionally, right? Then of course we now make sure that they are safe, right? You can't go to that place because look at what's happening to you, right?
Right.
And we may even have to say that to the other parent. I want you to see what our son, our daughter looks like when they are with me versus you. And that's a conversation between adults, not adults and children. Did you just catch what I just said?
Yeah.
We don't pit our children against the other parents, right? Children should not ever have to deal with adult decisions. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great question. I'll add one more thing because this is important. I see this a lot in therapy. Kids often blame themselves for what's happening to parents, right? Well, maybe it's because I wasn't a good kid. Maybe because, you know, I didn't clean my room. Maybe because you know, if I hadn't been born, right? And I've always got to let these kids, children, young people, adolescents know it's not your fault.
It's not, right? even I'm not even to cut you off, but even as adults,
even as adults,
even as adults, you know, grown, you know, children are still blaming themselves. We were just watching something. We were just watching something earlier today. You still blame yourself at 30 years old.
Yes. Yep.
And I'll say,
go ahead, Michelle. No, you got it, Michelle.
I'll say this. I always say,
that's true.
At least a theory I have is imagination is usually worse than the truth. When you don't talk to your children, you think you just let it go, but they've made up a story if you don't tell them.
If you don't tell them.
If you tell them the truth, then their imagination won't, because I think naturally we're selfish. The imagination will allow them to tell a story of something they've done.
That's right.
So imagination is literally worse than the truth. So the more you can tell them without, you know, harming them, of course, the more you can explain to them, I think it's always better because they're gonna create a story.
That's right. That's it. And I say that in couples therapy a lot, right? Don't leave the blanks. Don't leave it blank. Fill in the blanks, because when you leave it blank, then we're going to create stories, anecdotes, narratives that are more than likely not true. So the same thing with our children, right? Let's fill in the blanks as much as we can and remind them this is not your fault. Adults have made decisions, and you are not liable for the decisions that the adults have made. I'll add one more piece to that. You know, children who they've witnessed abuse in the home, violence in the home, and as they've gotten older, Sean, you talked about this, they'll go back and say, well, why didn't I step in and defend my mom being hurt or abused? And I have to remind them, I said, your job was to be a child.
Period.
Your job, period. That's it. Your job was to be a child. Let the adults work through what they needed to work through. Because imagine if you had stepped in and something had gone wrong, your mom, and I'm just giving that example, it would have been more detrimental to her if something happened to you. Stepped in. So we want to say to someone that's listening, I think this is a good place to pause. Remind your children, right, that it's not their fault. Their job is simply just to be a child as best as they can. And please, let's create safe places for our children emotionally and physically. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Absolutely. Dr. Schengold, he is one of the leading authorities in trauma therapy. He says this: trauma not only leaves invisible imprints on their brain, minds, and body, but it leaves invisible imprints on their souls and he calls it soul murder, right? So think about that, right? Where there's trauma, it's not on the screen, but that's one of those things, of course, in my work that I'm able to rehearse with people, that trauma, we've got to address this idea of crisis, because it can leave invisible imprints on their brain, their mind, their bodies. And also Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, he also mentions that as well. So here's some things about mental health and crisis. Again, we always throw stuff on the screen so that you could have that, you could look at that and see the research and see what's being said. I love what one teenage patient said. Said this: having anxiety disorder is like being stuck in the moment when you realize you've leaned too far back in your chair, but you've not yet fallen. Wow, wow, wow. Right. So when young people are going through crisis, and children, right, they have a picture, as you mentioned, Michelle, they have a narrative, right? So we want to help them understand what they're feeling. Then the other one is, this is a mental health philosophy that we always share, is that children may never say they have a headache or a stomach ache. They may never say that they're anxious or depressed or they're down, but they may say things like this: I've got a headache, I've got a stomach ache, I want to pee, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Does that make sense? So we want you to be listening in to your children. And the last thing we'll say from this particular slide, then we'll talk a little bit more, is to keep that in mind, that crises and crisis, right, can be very traumatic. And I mentioned that just now, for children and adolescents, and it can leave invisible imprints on their brain, their mind, their body, and their emotions. Does that make sense? Again, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, he writes a book. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. And he talks about that, how the body remembers the trauma of what we've been through, right? For example, again, we could speak to our community when we see things in the media like negative encounters with the police, right? What happens to us? Immediately, we begin to feel that thing.
Immediately.
Immediately, because there's that vicarious trauma that we feel, right? We pick that up. There is that transgenerational trauma, if you will, that's been passed down from one generation to the next. So it's important that we check in with our children, because when they've experienced crises, it can be very traumatic to them. And we've got to make sure that we help those imprints not leave a living legacy of symptoms. Make sense?
Yes.
Any thoughts on that? Anything we want to say on that? So how do we respond to youth in crisis? How do we respond to youth in crisis? And we're going to do another kind of engaging activity here, just to kind of put it into focus. Here's what I tell people: when we're talking about responding to youth and children in crisis, it's important that we don't take a sad, shock, traumatic approach. And I think I may have said that on the first day, right? So when kids are going through, when we know they're dealing with things, as we try to respond to them, it's so important that we don't take this approach of sad, shocked, traumatic. And someone says, but it is sad. And certainly it is. It is shocking. And certainly it is. It is traumatic. But here's what we know. If we take that approach, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Does that make sense? And we are literally projecting that on our kids. Right. Which is why we love what Sean and Michelle, what you do, the energy that you bring, right? The light that you bring, the just the joy that you bring, that's medicine to all of us. It helps us to get through crisis, which is why when you were on Tamron Hall, that thing exploded. Right. That thing went viral. And of course, it's the work that you're doing with Double Dutch, but what you brought to that show was energy. And there were so many people who are going through crisis, but in that moment, what you brought was joy. What you brought was hope. What you brought was medicine and like healing balms for people, right?
Right.
Anyhow.
And so, we gotta say this, because when we worked with, we get letters from parents sometimes about our students that have had anxiety, and our class has actually helped them through anxiety. And so 2 things we make sure to do, and we teach this to our certified instructors as well, is that you control the energy.
That's
Meaning we had one student for she
Oh
was in
yeah,
our program.
that's. I was waiting for you to finish. We had this student. I forgot her name.
Yes, and we don't want to mention her name.
I wouldn't anyway. But she was silent.
We didn't even know she liked the class.
We didn't even know she had a voice. We never heard her speak. She was with us for like it was a 12-week program, maybe on a 6 week. So like during when we teach kids classes, we give the kids like a job.
Yep.
Like, something to do because kids like responsibility.
Yes.
So we'll make a kid like a leader. Yep. I don't know, in a particular exercise. And at first, the first 6 weeks, she wouldn't say a word.
Can't pick her.
Nothing at all. Maybe like 6 or 7 weeks in, she went from being like a mute almost to like, okay, here's what we're gonna do.
We're gonna go. She woke up.
It was like Awakenings, like the movie. Yes. Awakenings. Yep. She literally woke up.
But she treated us like she was talking the whole time. Yeah. So we couldn't act shocked either. We just had to be, okay, but it's not.
We're looking around like, she talks.
That's it.
Not only did she talk, she was leading the class.
Like
That's it.
And it's like amazing. She literally woke up.
Yes.
She woke up. And it was like, what? And even when we went to the prisons, what we did was, mind you, they start off, even at the high school, they start off looking at you at the prisons like, what? We told her, why are you here? What y'all doing?
What are we doing?
Okay, what are we doing?
All right,
what? We literally, especially the MAC prison in Chicago, it was rough, okay? So we looked at each other, we were like, let's go.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, let's start the shift. We did, and at first they looked like, by the end of the class, they were like, like, it just woke them up.
It's true.
And that's what we teach our teachers. You can't let their energy
affect yours.
You. You have
you've got to set the temperature.
Yeah, you do.
Set the temperature. You must set the temperature. You must, as an instructor. I know you have your own life, but when you walk in and you're instructing and you're in a position of leadership and you're there to do a job and your job is joy,
that's it.
Then you have to
bring the joy.
Bring the joy.
That's it.
Need double Dutch aerobics. Hello. But no, that's the point, because it really does make a difference with the kids.
Absolutely. And so often why people, and this will go back to what you talked about yesterday, Michelle, and the question that came, why some people, they don't want to engage in therapy because it's what they've seen modeled, right? Normally when we talk about mental health, right, there's depressing statistics. Someone come forward and they're teaching the class and they look depressed, and you're like, well, I don't know if I should say anything because I don't want to push them over the edge, right? Right. It's overwhelming. It's depressing, and that energy is transposed and transferred to the individual. So what we're saying here is, and you've seen that this week, that we've been talking about mental health, but we've had so much fun, and I hear this all the time. Dr. Cassell, this is one of the most fun I've ever had talking about mental health, even when I do suicide awareness training, right? And we're mindful, right? People have taken their lives, right? People have lost their lives. We are survivors, those of us who've had people. But what we've come to realize, if you take that shock traumatic approach, like I said, my friend, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and people don't really see hope. So here's what I want to encourage us when we're working with our children. We'll put it on the screen. Is this: take a strength-based approach. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means. In other words, we want people to know, especially children, you've got strengths. You are strong. You've got strengths on the inside. There's something that you have to give. We want you to be around. We want you to stay. This world needs you. You've got strength. Well, I don't have any strength. Absolutely, you do. And we help them to identify that strength. And the next thing we want children and young people and adults, of course, to know is to be hope focused. We want them to have hope, right? That there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? That if today is your worst day, then by definition, tomorrow will be your best day.
Hello.
So we actually agree with people. When people say today is my worst day, we're going to agree with you.
Yeah.
But by definition, if today is your worst day, then by definition, tomorrow will be a better day and could be your best day. It
That
will be. And you speak that into their lives, right? We know this, that death and life is in the power of the tongue. What you speak, you move towards, right?
Period.
Yes.
Period. So you want to speak to your child, no matter what's going on. You've got strength, are filled with hope, right? And one of the things that I give to every one of my can you see that? I mean, can you see it on the screen there? I give this to every one of my clients and my patients is let's pull that in. There it is. It's a hope pill. I actually, yeah, they get a hope pill. It's a stress ball as well, right? But they get this pill, and we give to I give this to everyone. I send it in the mail to them, and then we review it. And what I want them to know is take your daily dose of hope, right? We want, when you see this, you say, listen, I'm going to be hopeful and I'm going to be hope filled. Make sense?
Yes.
Here's what we know with this hope pill and this idea that I share with them is that medication takes about 4 to 6 weeks to work, right? Particularly psychotropic medication for the brain. But hope takes effect immediately. Hope takes effect immediately. So when we speak hope to our children, to the adolescents in our life, that thing begins to take effect immediately. And the last thing, and then I want you to share how this works with Double Dutch, because this is exactly what you all do. You all literally give us like a hope pill. When we leave your presence, whether it's, through Double Dutch aerobics or seeing you online, man, hope comes alive, right? We leave and I'm telling you what we feel, right? You need to hear this, Sean and Michelle. I'm not just hyping you up because I know you and I'm on your show. No, I'm telling you, this is what we see and why people are so drawn to you, right? Because you give hope. And the last thing, we want them to know is to be resilient. We want them to know that you are resilient. You've got bounce back. So I've got 2 things that I do with these kids in my office. These are my stretchy people. Can you see that?
Let me zoom you in.
There you go. Make sure you get my good side. Right. So I've got my stretchy people. And what I tell these kids is just like this stretchy person, when you stretch it, I think I lost you, Sean and Michelle.
Can you see us?
No, you're something is happening. You're kind of there you go. Perfect.
Okay,
You're back. Yeah, when I stretch this stretchy person and I let them, release it, what happened? It bounces back, right? We tell them that as kids, as young people, we recognize that you are stretched, you are stressed, but my friend, you've got bounce back. Make sense?
Right.
And then the other thing I do, I don't know why I do this with them in therapy, but I do this for those that I do in person. And when I do training, I'll actually have a rubber band, right? And I'll tell them, go ahead, pull my rubber band and let it go. Again, I don't know why I do this every time. Don't snap. Oh, I'm going to punch you. And I tell them to pull that and let it go. And what I tell them is, just like the rubber band, you pull it, but when you let it go, you bounce back, right? That's the idea of resiliency. And we want people to know you are resilient. You've got bounce back. You've got comeback. You are, you are a victim and not a victor. You're a victor and not a victim. You are over. I mean, you could begin to speak those things to young people and children, and that will help them to navigate crisis. So let's stop right there. I want to hear you all on that one.
Well, clearly, we're parents as well as Double Dutch.
I thought you were going to say the same thing.
So our daughter actually, if she can't hear us, she sometimes has nightmares, right? And so because I was trying to, I believe in manifestation also. And so what I started to do with her was, before we go to bed, I would say, okay, let's imagine you are the most famous ballerina in the whole wide world.
Because that's what
the whole audience is screaming. So literally, and we do it with our son as well. You are a soccer player. You are the most, literally, Maverick wants to be a Superman. So he'll be like, I'm Superman. So we do manifestation right before we go to sleep. And what does Phoenix come in the room and say? Mommy, I had a good dream. And they were, so just
But not only that. So every morning we take them to school.
Yep, every morning.
There's two things that we do. There's a very great song on YouTube. It's called "I'm Unique."
Yes, YOU.
I'm unique.
Yes.
I'm great. I'm strong.
Yes.
I'm wise. I'm smart. Wait,
I'm loved and I'm unique.
And I'm unique.
That's
so
it.
we sing that every day.
Every day.
Right after that, we say our affirmations. I am strong. I am confident.
Yeah.
I'm loved. I'm
a leader.
I'm a leader.
Integrity. Yes.
So every single day before they go to school, that is what we do every single day, because we know that we have to speak confidence in them. You know, and then even not only that, they come to work with us every day.
Yeah.
And then they watch us talk to adults.
Yes.
You know, the thing in our class is what, you know, we say, oh yes, you can.
To adults. And
people really, really believe it because we mean it.
And the kids feed it back to us.
Yeah.
Like they'll be like, when I told the Phoenix went to the doctor, she told us, good job, mommy and daddy, for taking care of me. Good job, mommy and daddy.
Right.
So they reflect, just like you said, kids are mirrors.
Yeah.
They literally reflect what they see us giving to other people and them. And they feed it back to us sometimes.
And the thing is, doing it, you know, speaking it into them really helps us too.
Yes.
At the same time. Right. So while I'm telling you, listen, you're confident, you're beautiful, son, you're handsome, you're strong, you're smart. I'm doing those things for me as well, because
you hear it.
You have to do it for yourself as well.
That's it.
And helping them helps me.
I had a question.
Sure.
So Sean and I, and it's funny, this is about parenting and marriage, I guess. We, of course, disagree sometimes, and we may argue in front of the kids. And this is what I want to know, because I heard a couple say this. I hear it both ways. We argue in front of the kids. I mean, not crazy, of course, but we argue in front of the kids, but we also make sure they know, oh, you know, I love daddy.
Yes.
Or, you know, or he'll say, you know, I love mommy. So they know that even though we've gotten into it, because they'll see us, you know.
I tell them, mommy just has this thing of being wrong all the time. And so I have to.
No. But I don't know if, it's just that I didn't see my parents argue when I was younger. Even when my father passed away, literally when I gave a speech at my father's funeral, I was like, I don't know how they were married for so long and didn't fight in front of us. Like, I don't even know how you pull that off, because we live together.
But both of them don't like to argue.
Both of them don't.
Both of them.
But I don't know if you should.
I mean, nobody likes to argue, but they just.
Yeah. As a therapist, do you think it's appropriate to argue in front of children and then make sure they see you get back along? You understand what I'm saying? So they see the bounce back? Or should an adult argument, I mean, it's nothing crazy that we're arguing about the kids, you know, nothing inappropriate like that. But should that be kept for the adults? You know what I'm saying? Should you make sure that you don't argue in front of your children because it's not their argument?
So this is what I tell people, right? And you're right. Yes and no. But here's the thing I will say. Let's lean towards we take it to where the adults can be. Because remember, even though they are little versions of ourselves, they are little versions, right? So they have not yet learned how to navigate truly what an argument is. And yes, we can argue and we can fight, we can disagree, and then we know how to navigate that. But keep in mind, and I'll take this from attachment theory. There's a theory called attachment theory, where it says that children respond based on how they are attached to their caregiver and their loved one, right? And within that theory, what it explains to us is this, that each child is different. So how a child will receive one thing is not how another child will receive another. That makes sense, right? Yeah. So we may argue in front of, you have three children, right? You have three children, and one may receive it one way, the other may. So what I tell people is, let it be, I would rather that be the story of their lives, what you just said, Michelle. I never really saw my parents argue, than it to be my parents were arguing and we didn't know what it means. Does that make sense?
Yes,
so because they don't understand it, right? here's what's going to happen. You know, children will always want to defend their parents, right? And we never want to put them in a position to have to defend us, to defend daddy, to defend mommy, to come in the middle of the two, right? We always want them to be children, right? So you also prepare them for life as well, where you let them know, mommy and daddy, we disagree. We don't always see eye to eye, right? Because you don't want them to go out there in life and then see people arguing, and then it's a shock to their system, right? So do our best to be real and prepare them for life, but as much as possible, let's keep it to where it needs to be. You know, we know how to navigate life. We know how to bite our tongues, right? Listen, we do it at work. We do it in public. We do it when we go to church, when we go to the synagogue. We know how to, you know, keep it together, hold it together until we get it together. We'll do that as much as we can for our children. That would be my recommendation, right?
That's true.
So that our children are not getting those invisible imprints that I talked about, because we never know how that argument, how that thing left an imprint on them. And you're thinking, oh, it was just a simple thing. But for them, it could be a big thing. Does that make sense?
So they do try to come in between us and like, oh, I need this and da da da. And that's true. That's very true.
You never want them to have to defend us. And then the other thing is, keep in mind that sometimes we don't know how far we will go as adults. Right? You know, our emotions get so out of balance that we just go in, and then before you know it, we're like, how did we get this far? And the kids were right there.
Right.
I'll give one other example that I do with the kids in therapy and adults in couples therapy. I'll have them bring a can of Coke or soda or Sprite or whatever it is. And I say to them, go ahead and shake it up. Go ahead and shake it up. Now I want you to open that can of whatever that is, right? That has fizz in it. So open it up, right? And then of course they go to open it and said, no, let's not do that, because it's going to get all over my clothes, get all over my hair. I'm very vain, my clothes, all of that stuff. And what I explain to them is, we must be careful that we don't do that to the people that we love, that we spill all over them. And I would say that to you and to me as a parent, I want to be mindful that I'm not spilling all over my children. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's give a couple other things, and then we will. Our time is, man, this has been amazing. Let's pull this on the screen. How do we respond to youth in crisis? The best way is to define a crisis is how do they define it?
Right.
How do they? Because people say, how do you define a crisis for young people and children and for youth and adolescents? Well, my friends, how do they define the crisis? Right. So I put some things on the screen. Listen for the things that they say. They may say, I'm worried. I'm scared. I don't want to go outside. I might die. Mr. Worry Monster. Right. I don't want to go to sleep. You know, even during the pandemic, we had one of our family members, little kid in our family. I won't give too much details. We couldn't understand. We were told this during the pandemic, by the way, that he didn't want to go outside. And we're like, well, why doesn't he want to go outside? The parent. And it was because of COVID-19, what he had seen and what he had heard. He felt like if he went outside, that he would die. Right. So be aware of those things. Right. When they say things like, I'm not hungry, I need to pee again, I can't sleep, I want to stay with you. Right. It could be an indication, right, that they are dealing with something, right? Let me give you a couple other points, and then we'll kind of, we only have just a few more minutes here. How do you respond to a youth in crisis? Be aware that children are experts in their stories, so listen to them. They are expert in their stories, so listen to them. You also want to be on the lookout for what we talked about yesterday, signs and symptoms.
Right.
Signs are what you see. Symptoms are what they report, right? You also want to be on the lookout for the things that they don't say, right? They may not say some things.
Hold on 1 second. We have a kid in crisis.
There you go. There you go. I know how it is.
Yep. 1 second. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Guys, if you have questions,
If you have
So-
questions, you can type them now.
Or any comments.
Or any comments, yeah. And also be on the lookout for what they don't say and when their mood has changed, right? And then the other thing I'll say is listen when the angry child is speaking. A lot of times when the child gets angry, we shut them down. And of course, we don't want them to be disrespectful. We don't want them to be unkind, but they could be communicating to you
What's going on?
what's going on. So listen to when the angry child speaks. So I'll stop right there. Well, let's put this one last thing on the screen here is this. And I'm not going to read all of these, but these are some things to be on the lookout for within your children, right? Look out for those headaches. Look out for bedwetting and nightmares. Look out for fatigue, upset stomach, chest pains, ulcers, back pains. I want to highlight letter J because we saw this a lot during the pandemic where hair loss, alopecia areata, we were seeing quite a few cases of that. In children. And the doctors, Michelle, couldn't figure out what it was, but we realized it was as a result of the stress that was happening in their bodies, right? Now, of course, with alopecia areata, the jury is still out. The research is still out why that's the case. But what we did know was that we saw a lot of that during the pandemic. So just be aware of those signs and those symptoms. All right.
Yes.
Any thoughts on that? Being aware of our children, anger and frustration, sleeping patterns, blaming, guilt. All right. All of those things could be an indication that something might be going on with your children. And you want to make sure that you become that safe place and that you are leaning in with them. All right. There we go. That's what parenting is. This is life right here. That's it.
I had a question. Speaking of multiple children,
Right.
And how do you equip your children to deal with each other properly emotionally? Like, we have siblings that are close together, and the dynamic is so interesting with 3.
Mm-hmm.
So Phoenix is the only girl in the middle, and it shows. And neither one of us are middle children, so we don't know what that's like.
We're both the youngest.
We're both the youngest, and we both relate to Maverick the most. And Sean Jr. is the oldest, which is also another dynamic I'm learning about because it's a responsible people-pleasing thing. I mean, all of those memes online about the order of children, they are
spot on. Spot on.
They are spot on. But sometimes, like, emotionally, I want to teach my kids how to argue well together or I don't know how to deal with each other emotionally or how to deal with each other. So
no, I mean, it just happened just now.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, just to learn each other's limits.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes, like my son just now, he kept, bothering my daughter, and he just keeps going and keeps going, and she's crying, and it's like, well, at some point,
when do you stop?
When do you stop?
But sometimes she cried. She does cry to make him stop. It's
an interesting dynamic, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, what I tell parents, and you know better than me, right? From the parenting standpoint, I know from the clinical standpoint,
yes.
From working with kids for over 20 years, I've raised so many children. Here's a quick funny story. When my wife and I, we got together, the first thing I told her, I said, I have a lot of children. She was like, what? Yeah, I said, I have a lot of children. And she would see that wherever she would go, she would say, oh, he's my father. He's my dad. I'm like, yep, I've got a whole bunch of other kids that I raised, right? Other people's children. And of course, I now have my daughter. But here's what I tell people is this idea of teachable moments. Find those teachable moments with your children and letting them know in the moment, this is what it's happening. I want you to see what happens when you do that with your sister. I want you to see the effects of what happens with your sister. Then the other thing is I tell parents is to give them choices that's been vetted. So you give them those choices that you vetted, that giving it to them, they think it's just fresh off your mind, but give those choices of two things that you could do differently with your sister or with your brother. Does that make sense? Because what that does is what happened with you in that double Dutch class is it gave them a sense of ownership.
That's right.
Of leadership. It gave them a sense of, oh, I'm really in control here. Does that make sense? And then, of course, what I said earlier is to recognize how each child, which you know this more than me, how each child is different and relate to how that child connects. Some children will connect by touching. Some children will relate or connect by doing. Some children will relate, and the list goes on and on, right? So find out, number one, how do each of your children connect and relate, and work with them that way, right? So if one of your children, they are verbal, right? Connect with them that way and teach them how to use that verbal connection with their sibling.
Right.
If one of them connects through touch, right, teach them about healthy touching and showing them the difference. Well, if you keep poking her, right, she's going to explode on you. But how can you touch her in a way that gets her attention? And then you could also teach them to ask the question to their siblings, like we do with adults. How do you want me to relate to you? Right? So ask them, ask your sister, what would you prefer that you do for her? Does that make sense? Because what you're doing is you are giving them leadership responsibilities, but you're giving them choices that you have vetted, right? And that helps them a lot, I think, right? And the other thing is, just go back to the old-fashioned way of how we were raised, right? When we had siblings. We're gonna leave that one alone. We know what we do. We know what we do. But we remind them. And my wife, she does a better job at this because obviously she comes from 13 children. 13!
That's a lot.
So her mom and her dad taught them, all you have are your siblings.
That's right. Yeah.
That's all you have. And her mom and dad did a great job of telling them, you don't need anybody else, but make sure that you fight for each other.
That's right.
Take care of each other because all you have are each other. So you ask them the question, how are you taking care of your sister? How are you taking care of your brother?
Right? Sean G would absolutely.
Yeah,
my oldest son, he would love that.
Right. So I hope that helps. Right. And it's a learning process. And what we've found with kids over the years is that, man, they will fight with each other, but don't let anybody else come in between them, right?
That's right.
Anybody from the outside step in because they will truly, truly fight for their siblings. So I hope that helped, right? I tell parents, find out how each child connects, right? Again, that comes out of attachment theory, and it talks about how a person connects with a caregiver will determine how they function in life later on. Make sense?
Right.
So find out how do they connect, if it's touching, if it's speaking, if it's doing, and use those teachable moments. Like just now was a teachable moment.
Yeah.
Teachable moment, right? Yeah. Anything else? We've got like 2 minutes. Any questions, any comments? This was great. Let's do this. I want to do another, not an exercise, but just something to kind of put everything together here. Wherever you are, I want you to, we talked about that earlier. I want wherever you are, I want you to type into the chat feature. Just type and just say out loud, I'm strong, I'm filled with hope, and I am resilient. Can we do that together?
Go ahead, type that in.
I'm strong.
I am strong.
I'm filled with hope.
I am filled with hope, and I am resilient.
I am resilient.
Come on, somebody.
Come on.
I am strong. I am filled with hope, and I am resilient.
And I want that word to get out. I want people to know that they are strong. I want our children to know that they are strong and that they are filled, with hope, and that they are resilient. Sean, can you see this one on the screen?
Sure.
When you were talking about it earlier, there you go.
There it is. Yep, that's right.
I want to leave that on there. Maybe someone could take a picture of that. But here are some things that you could do. Sean and Michelle, you do this, right? Have your children rehearse the I ams, right? Every time they're around you, in the mornings, at night, let them say these I ams, right? Because what you speak, we know this. I said this earlier. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. We know that,
That's
right?
right.
What you speak, you move towards, right? So
Yes.
let them say things like, I'm awesome, I'm amazing, I'm talented, I'm
Woo.
smart, I'm brilliant, I'm loved, right?
I love
I
it.
am disciplined, I'm focused, I'm healthy, I'm attractive, I'm blessed, I am mighty in the land. So, my friends, encourage your kids with this, and this will help them to navigate crises that they are facing, right? But feel free to take a picture of that. Rehearse
Type
that.
it in. Good. Type it in. Type it in.
And you know, one of my favorite quotes that always checks me back in, I'm a quote person, so like it just checks me back in, is worry is a misuse of the imagination.
Wow, I love that.
Every time I'm like even trying to like think about something negative, I go, well, that's not going to help me. It's the misuse of my imagination. Why not imagine it on the positive end? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
If I'm worried about the weather, why not imagine it being sunshine? I'm not going to control the weather with my worry. You know what I'm saying? Anything I worry about is just literally it's a misuse of the imagination.
The misuse of the imagination. So let's imagine, right? We want our kids to imagine they are strong, they are filled with hope, they're resilient, and to help them to identify those strengths, right? Who are the people in your life that give you strength, right? And I literally have them do that, right? So tell me, who in your life gives you strength? Who is the source of your strength? Who is a family member? Who is a clergy member? Who is a mentor? And I have them rehearse those names, because those are the people that we want them to know that when you're going through a crisis, you will move towards those people.
Yes.
Love it.
I love that.
Yeah, that's where we are, my friends. Any questions, any comments? This has been great.
So, guys,
Any
if you have any
questions, guys?
questions, any comments, go ahead and type it
it.
in the chat box. We know we're on delay. Also, if you want to find Dr. Maurice Cassell,
Yes.
there's his information at the bottom. So he on IG, he is Maurice Cassell. Y'all go ahead and screenshot that. And then you can go to his website.
Yes.
C3inthistogether.com. C3inthistogether.com. If you say things 3 times, you'll remember it. C3inthistogether.com. He also has a YouTube channel, C3 in This Together with Dr. Maurice Cassell.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and check that out if you want more information. His information is at the bottom.
Resources. There's a lot of resources you will find on that YouTube channel. Sean and Michelle, I've been privileged. I mentioned this on the first night, to sit with people just like we do. And we take 30 minutes and they share their stories. In fact, April will be Autism Awareness Month. And we have, I think we have about 2 or 3 shows that we did with parents who are navigating children with a special needs. And let me put a plug for that. I'm a big advocate for disability and special needs awareness. I've coined a phrase that says, let's disable disabilities, right? Let's be the generation that creates awareness that people with special needs and disabilities, it's not that they lack ability, it's that they are differently enabled, right? Makes sense?
Right. That's right.
That's one of my platforms, not from a lived experience. I do have a neurotypical child, but it's become a passion of mine because parents are going through this, right? They have children. Perhaps you have a child, someone watching right now, you have a child with that special needs or with a disability. We want you to know that we are journeying with you. We have resources for you right there on the website and on the YouTube channel. So please, let's be the generation that disables disability. We don't use words like mentally retarded. We don't use words like touched, right? We use words like neurodivergent. Those are words that we want to begin to use. Even as we talk about suicide, you'll notice how I spoke about suicide. I didn't say committed suicide, right? It's taking your life by suicide. right? So yeah, just want to make sure that you know that we have those resources, because there are parents who are dealing with children right now, Sean and Michelle, that they have a diagnosis of special needs and they don't know where to go, and they don't have the supports, right? We have neurotypical children, meaning they've met the developmental milestones. They don't have a diagnosis, but let's be people that not only care for our children, let's care for all children as well. Make sense?
Yes.
I have 3 nieces that are autistic.
Wow.
Verbal, so
I didn't know that was your story. See?
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, check out the website. We talked with actually three parents. One of them is the associate pastor at the Lakewood Church, Pastor Craig Johnson. He works with Pastor Joel Osteen.
Joel Osteen, yeah.
Yeah, and he shared his story. Also, Dr. LaQuista, I think Ariana is her name. They went viral. Her barber was the one that was cutting her son's hair. I was able to talk with her.
Oh yeah.
LaQuista. So she does great stuff. So all of that you can find on the website or on YouTube to give you the supports outside of our time together. Yep. That's it, my friends.
All right, so guys, if you don't have any questions, we will see you guys tomorrow, same time at 8 p.m. We got some good stuff, y'all.
Yes, I'm learning a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you so much for this, Maurice. Like this is really necessary, and people are thanking you as well on Instagram.
Thank you all. Thank you.
I mean,
I hope you all hear my heart. I really hope you hear my passion and my heart and my love for people. That's why I do what I do, right? I wanted to equip myself to help people, and this is, I prayed for opportunities like this, platforms like this, like you did, right? So that we could get the word out, especially in our communities, because we don't talk about special needs in our community. We don't talk about children dealing with crisis in our communities. We just say they just want attention. My friend, will give them the attention. If that's what you feel, I'd give them the attention. So we're doing this for you all because we absolutely love you. Thank you, Sean and Michelle.
Thank you. All right, guys, we'll see. A lot of hearts, All right, we'll see you guys. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. 8 p.m., y'all. 8 p.m.
8 p.m. tomorrow.
Listen, don't be late.
Secret.
Don't be late. We'll dock your pay.
There you go. And share this with your people, with your folks.
Yes.
Right. Share, like, subscribe. Here you go. Let's go to the banner here. Share, like, and subscribe. Where is it at? Sorry. I'm wearing many hats today. Share, like, and subscribe at Double Dutch Aerobics. Guys, we're gonna have a lot of information. We're trying to heal this world from the inside out, from the outside. You know what I'm saying? So just stay with us. We got good information. We have experts in their field helping us out so that we can all learn.
Yes.
So that we can all learn together. Together. All right.
All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
See y'all tomorrow. Same time, same batch.
See y'all. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Put these kids to bed.
Oh, it's in that right there. Hold on. All right. What is? I'm just trying to see if I could.
Enos is crying.
Yeah. I just want to see if I could view it on LinkedIn as well. Oh, okay, you can. Here it is on LinkedIn. Gotcha.
Good.
This is perfect. All right.